Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. On this podcast, we explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who have found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience, where they felt stuck, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others and finding possibility for yourself. Let's get into this week's conversation. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Comma. Very excited to be back again. We are now well into our second hundreds. Is that how that works, right? Like we're past 100, so we're into our second hundreds very early, right? And very excited to be back again with another episode. And I'm really excited for this week's interview and this week's guest, Lauren Yankoff, who I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a moment, because she is someone who I met through a colleague, and then we've since hopped on the phone and talked and gotten acquainted and so forth, which is when I kind of twisted your arm. Not so much about being on the podcast, but what I'm excited about with Lauren is while we've met and we've talked and we've gotten to know each other a little bit, and we have some shared background in terms of the industries we've worked in the past and so forth. So that was pretty cool. Such a small world. And she lives in my town of Sacramento, outside of Sacramento. But I'm also excited to hear more about Lauren and her story through what she's going to be sharing with us today. So while we have gotten acquainted and gotten to know each other, I'm also looking forward to deepening that knowing of Lauren through what she's going to be sharing with us today. So with that said, I'm going to stop rambling, Lauren. I'm going to hand it over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself, and why don't you start with how would you like to be known? And then what would you like for folks to know about you?
Let's see. Well, first of all, congratulations on hitting the 100 episode mark. That's very exciting.
Thank you.
But what I think I would like people to know about me or how I'd like to be known, I think first and foremost, I'm a mom. I think I lead with that. My kids are most important to
Mm,
me. That's something that, while I never thought I'd become a mom, is become the kind of central point in my life. I'm a daughter. My parents are incredibly important to me. It's a kind of something that has grounded me throughout my life. I think that my parents have shaped who I am and continue throughout my entire life to have a deep influence on what I do and why I do what I do. But if I were to say anything, I always pick words to kind of ground me throughout anything. And right now, I think
mm,
the three words that come up for me most are courage. I am really in a time in my life where I'm courageous. That has come through pretty consistently in the last, I would say, second act, second phase of what I'm doing.
hmm
I like to be connected to people. So whether that's through my work, whether that's with my family, or whether that's just in my everyday interactions, I think connection is incredibly important to me and how I show up, and consistency. So I always believe when you're consistent, when you're disciplined, that great things can happen, and the action of doing, as well as being, is really important with consistency. So those are the three words right now in my life
hmm
that resonate most with me and how I'm showing up in the world.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. And they're strong words. They're powerful words. And I always love it just for funsies, right? The when there's the what is it? Is it alliteration? Is it onomatopoeia?
Yeah,
Anyway, the CCC, right? So
yeah.
that's cool. I'm looking forward to seeing how these traits kind of show up in your story today. So what else would you like folks to know? I mean, no pressure, no expectation, but if there's anything else in terms of like hobbies, interests, or work, or anything like that.
Well, my work right now is I've made a big pivot, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more. I left a
Mm,
retail career that I'd had for many years, and now I'm showing up as a coach and consultant. My work is founded around some personal experience, so coaching people who are aging or caring for their aging parents, and
hmm
really have come to that place through my own personal experience. As far as hobbies, um, listen, I wish I had more than I do. That's where that consistency piece comes in.
What
I'm
what
doing a doing a lot of work, a lot of time with my kids. I think before we got started, I said, man, I'm looking forward to school starting again because I'm
Mm,
spending a lot of time with my kids during the summer. But if there were little things, I try to go to the gym, I try to work out. I don't always succeed. I try to read. I think maybe that's another word I could add to myself. She tries. I
okay.
try. I try to do the things that I want to do. I don't always succeed, but I give it a good effort.
Well, and I'm kind of like you in terms of, I've always kind of admired and envied the metaphor is piano, right? The folks who maybe whether it's piano, painting, cooking, gardening, whatever, right? But like the person who when they're going through stressful times or maybe they just need a break from the rest of the world, they go and sit down and practice their piano, right? And so throughout their life they always kind of have that as their hobby or their interest or whatever. And I'm like, I don't have piano. So but I would like to reframe that for us if you're willing to let me do so. And that is, it sounds like the other things that you're participating in are important to you and, you know, perhaps hobbies are a little bit overrated. Everybody's got their own thing and not everybody has to have piano or cooking or gardening and it sounds like you're doing the things you want to do, and you also have an eye towards maybe at some point I have more time and space for things that I might be interested in then.
Yeah, I think that's a good reframe. And what I would share is I've never felt like I've had a boring life. I've always had a
Mm,
full and wonderful life, and I'm really grateful for that.
nice. So, Lauren, before we get into the five questions here in just a moment, one of the things I do with every guest is to say, okay, as you look ahead to the next 45 minutes or so and the story you're going to share with us today, what would be your intention for yourself in the telling of
Hmm.
this story?
I think it would be to just be as authentic and honest and vulnerable with it as I can be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. My intention is to support you in that intention and to do so by obviously holding the space for your storytelling today. And that there will be people out there who hear your story and they see a little bit of themselves in you and your story, which helps them feel a little bit more connected, maybe a little less alone, and in the best of cases, feeling inspired or empowered to go out and do something they've been wanting to do.
That would be wonderful. Good.
Awesome. Let's jump into the questions then. So the first question, Lauren, is where in your life have you found yourself sitting on a comma?
Yeah. I think the biggest one for me, I shared with you earlier, I had spent a very long career in corporate in the retail space, very successful. But there was always something calling for me,
Mhm.
something different. And I would say I had written down probably 10 or 12 years ago that I wanted to move into the coaching space. And I sat on that desire for a really long time. Um, when my dad passed 2 years ago, I took a different role in that space and knew that it wasn't right for me.
Mhm.
It it created something for what I needed in that moment where I didn't have to travel. I could be more present at home, support my kids, kind of give some space for myself. But I knew it wasn't the right thing. And I sat with it for a very long time, knowing I
Mm.
wasn't doing something that was fulfilling for me, knowing I wanted to do something different, and not really able to take action on it. So I
Mm.
think that's probably where I sat for an extended, like both a long period of time, knowing I wanted to do something different, and
Mhm.
also this more short, intense period of time, knowing that I wanted to make a move, but I wasn't quite ready yet.
Mm. It also seems like, and again, I'll reflect throughout the conversation, always correct me where I'm wrong or push me out if I jump in while you're in the middle of a thought or something. But it sounds like also that you took that role with some level of intention because of the circumstances in your life, but that you weren't necessarily excited about that role, or that if you'd had other options, other choices, you would have taken them. I guess what I'm trying to say is did you feel like you were kind of stuck in that role?
Oh, yeah, Absolutely. I mean, and here's the thing, I was so grateful at that moment when that role was offered to me
Hmm.
because I knew that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. I was traveling extensively. I think the grief that I was experiencing with my dad passing, the
Mm,
grief I was witnessing with my mom, they had had a, 52-year marriage.
mm,
Um, I I needed something different, and I was grateful that my organization was willing to do that. Um, but I deep in my heart knew that it wasn't the right thing, but
hmm.
I made the choice because I was optimistic that, I think you sometimes we all make like agreements with ourselves or we talk ourselves into things. And I think it was a
Hmm.
moment where I was like, oh, I can do this because it fulfills X, Y, and Z. And
Mm,
that outweighs A, B, and C. And that was kind of the negotiation I made with myself at the time.
mm.
Um, Even though I knew it was not going to be a deeply fulfilling role, but I was like, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, and I know you've got a lot of story to tell here. I mean, first of all, I want to acknowledge you for making this kind of a choice at such a pivotal point in your life, the loss of your father. So that's losing a parent is difficult for any of us at any stage in life. And then of course, being there with your mom as well as she's going through this period. In every story, a lot of times I say this a lot in episodes, we can listen to your story and most of us make assumptions as we do as humans. It's like, oh yeah, I know what that's like. I get it. And we're kind of like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And we just kind of listen on a certain level. I'd like to take this moment to kind of dive a little deeper into your specific experience. When you made this difficult decision to choose this role that wasn't necessarily the one you wanted long term, what was it in that moment in your life that this role was giving you? What was it that you were gaining from making this very difficult and tough choice?
It's a great question. I would say the biggest thing I gained, so the job that I had before, I was traveling 4 days a week. I was on the
Mm,
road, and I knew I couldn't sustain that. Like physically was one of the things, right? Just being on the road, being away from my
mhm,
family, watching my mom. And I had taken a leave while my dad was passing. I had been home. So I knew physically I couldn't sustain that just being away, but also like just how hard it was on me physically and
mhm,
emotionally to be away. So it gave me the opportunity to not do that anymore, which was a
mhm,
relief, right? It's a relief to be able to not do that, to be home, to have that space. Um, I think it gave me the opportunity to pause and think about what might be. I think in the back of my brain, I was also like, well, maybe if I do this, I could start to do what I've always wanted, or maybe I could have a little bit of a space, or maybe I could like try to get this other thing going. I
mhm,
do think there was a part of me that thought maybe I could like do both. And as you asked me that, I'm like, yeah, there was that. That was going.
mhm,
What I quickly learned is that when I personally do something that I'm not aligned with, I don't have the energy
mm,
to really do anything else.
mm. Say more about that because on the one hand, you made a difficult choice and it fulfilled a specific need at the time, right? I need to not travel. I need to be home with family. But I know this isn't for good. This isn't forever, and it's not for the best necessarily. But what was that was happening? You said it wasn't in alignment and you were feeling diminished energy. Say more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to put it, diminished energy. So I think the struggle of like not doing something that I was enjoying, and also I think just the dynamics, right? I'd
Mm,
had this much bigger role. It was a very different role from what I'd been doing. I was feeling really torn. Um, I was on Zoom all the time, where before I was out in the world, right? In stores and traveling and, around people.
Mm-hmm.
I would get off, 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours of Zoom calls, and I'd be like, oh my God, I need to sleep for like,
Mm.
I need to sleep for 2 hours because it was not me. It wasn't me. It wasn't what I
Mm-hmm.
was used to. It wasn't what I enjoyed. So I think there was no energy for anything else. I wasn't fulfilled. I was really unhappy. So any energy I had was going into just being able to get through what I was doing versus being able to put it anywhere else.
It sounds like it was a very challenging period, not just what prompted you to choose this role, but then everything that's unfolding for you while you're in the role.
Yeah. And I think also at the same time experiencing just a high level of um, grief too.
Mm,
Right? Like still grieving my dad, still trying to make sure my mom is okay. I had moved her in at the time as well. So I think there was just a layer, like compounding layer of things.
it seems like, and tell me if I'm wrong, like there's multiple layers of grief. There's the grief in losing your father, and then, sharing in the grief with your mother. But it also seems like the grief in a lost life or a lost chapter of life or a lost way of life. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I think that's a excellent way to put it because throughout all of what I was experiencing, like my identity was very much tied to what I did.
Mm, hmm.
I loved what I did. I had had a great career. I had worked very hard to get there, and it was an enormous shift from where I had been. So
Hmm.
I think that's a very accurate way to put it is there were multiple layers of grief happening because of both the loss of my dad, but also this loss of who I was and not really yet becoming who maybe I was starting to see or wanting to become. It was very
Hmm.
much this period of time of uncertainty and unrest and not really knowing what what was going to happen.
It seems like, all these losses. Well, let me change the direction in that because I think you've been pretty clear, with what you're saying. And I can see, even just, the energy level as you share the story, I can see how heavy that must have felt for you at the time. Well, let me
Yeah.
jump into the second question, and then you can kind of continue to expand on the story or take us where you want to. The second question is, when you look back at this comma that you were sitting on, what did it create for you?
Mm. So I said that I kind of took that moment or took that role to give myself space.
Hmm.
And while it wasn't giving me the space that I thought it would to maybe create or to do, like maybe I can, because that, like I said, that had always been in the back of my mind that I wanted to become a coach and I wanted to do this. Um, I think what it did give me was the space to slow down enough
Mm,
that I was resting more, right? Because I was exhausted. I didn't like
mm.
doing. So I was getting some of the things that maybe I needed that I didn't want to acknowledge that I needed.
Interesting, right? Because what you describe is kind of similar to what I think so many of us experience, which is sometimes there's the thing we want and we go after the thing we want and we get what we want. And sometimes there's the thing that we need, but we're going after the thing we want and life says, no, you need this thing. It's really powerful to hear you say, on the one hand, that you were exhausted and you were sleeping and you needed rest, and yet it is what you needed.
I and I think that's one aspect of it, right? I didn't want that, but that was absolutely what was coming up for me. So I think it gave me that space. I think I was better at accepting it too,
Hmm.
because I wasn't really loving what I was doing. For me, I'm the kind of person where I'll get fed up with myself. And like, when am I gonna, but it takes a while. Like when am I just gonna get done with how I'm operating? And I think that it finally got to that point of like, you're not happy. You've wanted to do something else. You're exhausted all the time. Like,
Mhm.
your life and your body are trying to tell you something. And are you just going to keep doing the same thing, being okay with it? Or are you going to do something differently?
Mm.
And I think in a lot of ways, I was like, well, maybe the what I'm doing will end. Maybe like I kept hoping that like external rescue would come in.
Mm.
And what I finally had to remind myself, like my whole life has been this story. I think of like nobody's gonna come rescue you. You're gonna have to make the decision for yourself.
Hmm.
And I think finally I was just like, if I'm gonna be happy, and I think every big decision, every comma I've ever sat on, it's always been like you gotta make the decision for yourself.
It's really powerful. I'm self-referencing right now because I had a moment like that as well. But before I share that, how did you feel about that? Or how do you, since you said that comes up often for you, when you come to that moment of, dare I say, no one's coming to save you, it sounds like, I mean, you kind of have a relationship with that dynamic.
I do. I do. Yeah. I think there's been so many moments in my life throughout, whether it's relationships, whether it's work, whether it's forks in the road, right? Like I can go back to decisions I made about which college I was going to go to, and like things like that, where it's always going to be, I kind of wish somebody would help me make this decision, but it's always coming down to the universe has consistently told me
Hmm.
you've got to be the one to decide. It's not going to be made for you.
Yet it seems like you're very in tune with it, and that even though it makes for an interesting story, right? When you tell it, it seems like, even just looking at your facial expressions as you tell the story, it's like, yep, and I do it, and then I go on with it. Like when I say relationship with it, it seems like that kind of is maybe part of your process in a way.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it is part of my process and I don't even realize it. But I think with this one in particular, I just got to the point where I was like, I can keep being miserable.
Hmm.
Um, But I think also as women, we're conditioned in a way to be like, well, I should be grateful for everything that I have. I
Hmm.
should be grateful for what was given to me. I said I would stay. I said I would do this. And so there's this aspect of feeling kind of stuck or committed or whatnot,
Hmm.
and making the choice to be okay with letting go of that and upsetting people, letting go of some of those, I think, just parameters maybe where,
Mm.
I was going to do what was right for me.
The question I was going to ask is, what was it that you were finally fed up with? I think we can make assumptions based on the context of the story you're sharing, but I'd like to hear from you. When you got to that fork in the road, what were you fed up with?
It's interesting because if you asked me that when I left, I would have said, oh, I was fed up with this in the job, or I was fed up with how this was happening and how, maybe so and so was treating me. But at the end of the day, that's all kind of like a symptom or an excuse. What I was
Hmm.
really fed up at, as I look back at it, was that I was allowing myself to not do what I knew I wanted to.
Mm.
I knew forever that I wanted to start my own business. I was just afraid to do it. And so I kept putting things in the way of that. Like, okay, I don't have enough money yet. I had enough money. I knew I had it. I could do it. I had the runway. I knew I could make changes. I didn't have the certification. Well, I was working on the certification. The
Hmm.
certification will come. I didn't have the business plan. Oh, well, you make a business plan. And I think that I finally just realized that I just needed, it's that action piece. I just needed to do it
Mm.
instead of making excuses.
Mm. So, I mean, that's really a good kind of setup, I think, for the third question and where you're at in your story. So let me ask it, and you can continue to kind of go back upstream as you need.
Okay.
What have you learned about yourself as a result of sitting on this comma?
It's funny because I had a friend tell me like a month ago, she goes, "You're doing it. You're doing what all of us wish we could do. We could have this good life and have the kids and create a business and all of that." And I was like, I'm just making it up as I go along. But to her, I was like doing all the things. And so I think that what I have learned about myself is that that word courage, that's why I picked it, because I was
Hmm.
like, I just need to be courageous for myself and take up more space than I am comfortable taking up because I've played things safe for a long time, being in a corporate world, being a single mom, like trying to do things on my own. And I think that the the piece of me that I've learned is that when I like those three words, courageous, connection, and consistency, like that shift of that's how I want to show up in this world. I want to make courageous, bold decisions and take courageous action. When I show up with consistency every day, action, take action every day. Like I push myself with that now.
Hmm.
And I did it in a corporate perspective, but doing it now is different because it's me on the line, right? Not an
Hmm.
organization that has a, somebody who could step in as soon as I'm gone. Like it's just it's me.
Hmm.
And I am working hard to stay connected in a different way, not just to my family and friends, but to make great connections, get out into the world, and meet people in a different way that I, as an introvert, is super scary for me, right? Like
Hmm.
I don't love that aspect, but I'm doing it. And I have found that I am creating something that I'm really proud of and that I feel is very needed. And that honestly, I now looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I'd done that a while ago.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I know that you don't do anything until you're really ready for it. And so,
Go ahead, continue, and then I
yeah,
want to jump in
I
with
mean,
something.
that's why I say it's like I was sitting on it. I said I wanted to be a coach 12 years ago and build
Hmm.
that business, but I don't know that I would have been ready to do it in the way that I'm doing it.
Yeah, it seems it's fascinating to kind of sit over here and watch your story, right? And what your friend told you is you are doing it, right? And you said, "Oh, I guess I am doing it." And it's interesting because a couple of things I want to reflect back at you. It's like you were preparing yourself, right? And like you said, everything that you felt like you weren't far enough along, but you were in the steps, right? From the coaching certification and on. And yet it also seems like, I mean, this is just kind of like a hindsight kind of thing, but it happens so often and I see it in my own life. It's like it seems like how could you, this is just my opinion, how could you have become a coach helping people through the grief process of taking care of elderly parents and not have gone through that yourself? So in a really kind of interesting way, maybe this whole comma that you're describing to us was preparation or and right and or preparation or the final straw or the what you were describing, like the you had to be given something to really get fed up with enough to be able to take the leap, right? I don't
Totally.
know. What I mean, that's you tell
And
us.
well, and I like the other aspect of this of deciding to focus what I'm doing on helping people care for aging parents, that wasn't even where I started. When I
Mm,
left and started the coaching, I thought I would just do executive coaching and help small businesses because that was what I knew, where my wheelhouse was.
mm-hmm,
And so it's interesting because it's like, well, I was really kind of like nothing landed. I was doing it. I had a couple people I was working with, and I still wasn't fully like feeling like that was the right thing. And I got sick and was like laying in bed for a week, just totally like out. And I'm
mm-hmm,
laying there and I was like, well, it's not landing because that's not what I really want to do. I want to help
mm,
people who went through what I went through.
mm,
And again, it's like those moments where you need this space and you need just the like rest or the whatever it is that gives us the insight of no, actually, this is where I'm in alignment, and this is why it's not landing. This is why you're fighting against it. This is
mm-hmm,
why you're not putting anything out into the world that feels right. And I still remember I was like, nope, this is what I'm going to do. And I probably did more in those 3 weeks for the business than I had for 4 months before that.
mm-hmm,
And put so much out into the world after that because it was so aligned. It was so just genuine and coming from what I knew to be true around how I could help people.
mm.
Um, and yeah, it just, that made such a difference for me.
What a powerful moment. And yet another example too of, yeah, I mean, because you said it came to you while you were resting and it took being sick to rest. This resonates so much with me, by the way, but that again, kind of being forced to rest, but then seeing what comes from it, right? I wanna jump back upstream. I don't often do this, but something you said earlier just really is sitting with me, and I want to hear more about it. And you had said allowing myself to take up space. You said
Mm.
more about it, but you kind of went into your story there. What does that really mean for you, or what really were you afraid of there? Because you've kind of shared, yeah, I started my business and I've shifted since then. I'm really curious what that statement meant for you.
Um, I would say for a lot of my life, I was told that I was too much. I had strong opinions. I needed to tone those down. In the corporate world, I was told you need more executive presence. And I was like,
Mm,
I don't even know what that means because I am who I am. And I remember getting that feedback and I was like, what exactly does that mean? And so from like you can even tell I'm talking with my hands as we're talking here. Like
hmm
there is this part of me that has always had a natural exuberance. I was a high achiever. I was very successful from an early age. Like but that's like probably who knows some trauma response, right? Like I had to perform to do whatever.
hmm
But that got tamped down, tamped down, tamped down, tamped down until I always felt like my opinions were in the minority if I was in a work environment. Um, I felt like I was kind of in this I was like the odd man out a lot of the times. So I played small. I tended to not share my opinions. Um, I tended to really stay quiet and only share things that I was like literally I would have such an emotional reaction that I was like, okay,
hmm
I have to say this. And I think it was a really a struggle for me in the corporate environment because I just felt like I couldn't be myself or take up the space that I was allowed. Um,
hmm
and I think that played out in personal relationships throughout my life in various ways as well. And so I think that this is really a moment for me to step into taking up more space, feeling
hmm
valid about what I'm doing. And frankly, I have a super supportive partner too. I think that makes a difference when you have
Hmm.
not just like my mom and dad who I know would be supportive of this, but I have somebody who's in my corner. That helps. My kids are really supportive and they're 20 and 16, but they get it. And there's so
Yeah.
like have this like team around you that is behind you. It feels really different
Hmm.
where I kind of had that at times off and on throughout my corporate career, but I never fully felt like I had that. And it has made a difference to, I think, fully step into feeling like I can be who I am and take up space. And what's interesting about that too, I think, is when I go out and network and share what I do, um, I the connections that I make and the people who I meet, I feel like those easily turn into not client relationships, but just relationships. Like I just
Hmm. Hmm.
meeting people and talking to people and learning about them and their stories and it like I don't know, it's a very different way of being for me now,
Sure.
that I think has always been there, but I am allowing myself to fully embrace that aspect of myself now.
In your answer to the question and describing what taking up space means for you, and then also, you share kind of your growing up and kind of, as you said, keeping yourself small, all the way up to this moment, this story you've been sharing with us, the comma story, it almost seems like, and when you came through that comma and you started your own business and so forth, I'm hearing just breaking free of restraint,
Yeah.
like corporate role held you back to a certain degree, or rather required you to kind of, restrain yourself to a degree. Then, of course, this huge loss, and then this next chapter that you've been telling us, that was all about restraint and choices that, kind of held you back. And so, like, it sounds like everything you've experienced since then has just been like unrestrained.
Oh, Paul, I didn't expect to get emotional. You just made me emotional with that. That, wow, that really struck a chord because,
Mm,
um, yeah, I think that there is something there. Um, I have played it safe.
mm,
I've played it safe to be successful and to have the life that I have. Um, but it's never really been exactly what I wanted.
mm. Playing by other people's rules, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I feel you right now. And like what a powerful story, because it's just your words, right? It's you telling your story that I could see that, because when as soon as you said playing small and being told that I was too much, it's like, oh man, I can relate to it a little bit. I know a lot of people like that, and I've talked to people like that, and it's my own experience is, I call it holding my elbows in. I don't know
Mhm.
that I was ever told I was too much. Probably I was, but I go through life trying to stay out of everybody's way, and what I am losing as a result of it, I can't say, but so I can relate a little bit. When you said, man, being told to tone it down, or whatever the words you were used were, I'm like, because there's a part of you in that says it's just fuck that, right?
Yes.
I mean, how
Yeah.
does it feel to see yourself as unrestrained? I mean, you had a reaction to that. How does that feel?
Wow. It's funny. When you asked me that, I'm like, I don't know if I fully am.
Mm,
And here's why. The letting go, I'm still doing my own work. Even though I help people with that, I'm still doing my own work to fully let go of it, right? And there are moments, and I'll use this as an example. I was going to a conference and I was late for it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't be late because in the corporate world, you can't be late.
mm-hmm.
And I got there and I'm like, nobody gives a shit if I'm late. They don't know me. They're like, who am I to any of these people? But in my brain, I'm still wired for you got to show up on time, you got to be there, you got to do all the things. Because in the corporate world, that wiring is so intense. So
Hmm.
it's a small, like, that's a small way of like where I'm still letting go of some of those restraints of like, I can just show up and be me
Hmm.
and do what I need to on the time that I need to, um, and always show up at my best. I knew yesterday, I'll give you another example. I knew yesterday I was not at my best. I had gotten like 2 hours of sleep, and I knew I couldn't have client conversations. And it's the
Hmm.
first time I ever moved clients. But I was
Hmm.
like, for you to get the most value out of the day, I need to reschedule you. And I hate doing that. I've never done it. But I was like, I need to for my yes, for myself
Hmm.
because I'm a mess today, but also for them because they're paying me. And I
Sure.
want them to get value out of their time and they
Yeah.
haven't gotten any value out of their time. But like that, so that's a moment where I feel like I am breaking free a little bit from the restraints
Hmm.
because normally I would have been like, you have to push through, you have to do this, you have to, and I'm so those are examples of like, I'm not totally there yet, but I am getting there because I have a different lens on my values, my priorities, and like what's best for my clients, what's best for me, and how do I live
Hmm.
those every day?
I love what you just said there. It's so descriptive and rather than go sideways and self-reference all the corporate programming and indoctrination and so forth. But it strikes me of the metaphor, and I don't remember where this comes from, so I can't cite the original author or what have you, but the baby elephant in the circus that's trained and they tie the rope to the chair and the baby elephant can't get away. But as the elephant grows, it never realizes that it has the power to just pull away from the chair. It keeps seeing the rope. And that's kind of what I'm seeing in what you shared, right? Is like the restraints themselves are kind of gone, but there's still the echoes and the shadows, and you're still looking at the rope. And isn't that just something,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And let's springboard that into question four. You've already started answering it, but the next question is, what has changed for you as a result of sitting on this comma?
Yeah. Um, I feel profoundly different as a person. I mean, the experience of a couple things, right? The experience of watching my dad get sick and pass, and then sitting, knowing I needed to do something different and waiting for the right timing, but coming out the other side and being in a place where I feel probably happier than I've ever been. I mean,
Hmm.
I look at myself now and I'm like, okay, I've raised two really good kids. I have a good relationship with my mom and my extended family. We're probably closer than we've ever been. I have a really supportive partner and these two great bonus kids, which I've been dating for, 6 years. I hadn't gone on a date.
Hmm.
Now I have this great partner in my life. I'm doing fulfilling work. I am much easier on myself and more compassionate with myself than I've probably ever been. And from like just a personal perspective, how I treat myself, I think has shifted very
Hmm.
differently.
Hmm.
Uh, the
let's let's
person,
let's let's not brush that. Let's not generalize on that. What's an example? Like, what's one thing that would be an example of how you're treating yourself differently?
well, I think the example of yesterday and allowing myself to know
Hmm.
what I needed, what I needed, and what I
Hmm.
needed to give. Um,
I think
I,
allowing in and of itself is a powerful word, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think too, like I missed a lot of my kids' lives when I was working in corporate and traveling.
Hmm.
And I would never use the word regret because it truly has brought me to where I am,
Mm-hmm.
but I've made a very conscious choice to not do that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I want to be present for the last couple of years of my son's high school graduation. I want to be able to go and visit my son in Denver when I want to, not based on a calendar that is dictated to me. I want to do it when I want to do it and have
Mm-hmm.
that ability and freedom. And so I think there's this level of um freedom that is also there for me that I've never experienced before that is really important. And so I look back on mm, everything that I've done and I don't regret any of it because it brought
Mm-hmm.
me here and all of that hard work has enabled me to make a change and say, okay, thank you for all that you did. Now you get to do what you want and be who you want. And I love the reference of the restraints because
Mm.
that's given me a great perspective of I don't have to restrain myself. I can really have some freedom in this.
Mm-hmm. And I see the power in the choice now because that also seems like that's an element there. Is in the past, you made the choice to participate, and then a lot of the choices were kind of taken from you, right? Or you made an agreement. This is what we do when we have those jobs, right? It's like, well, I said yes a long time ago, and then all this other stuff was just yes by default. But it's like I really don't want to say yes to this. So now you're allowing. You said you're easier on yourself. You have more self-compassion, and you always have the option to say yes to the things, but you're being very intentional about the things you say yes to.
Yeah, 100%.
Sounds
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah, I think that ability to say yes to what I want to say yes to
Hmm.
is such a different place versus, well, the calendar or the corporate calendar says this, right?
Hmm.
God, I don't miss that at all.
Mm. Mm.
I don't miss
Yeah.
that at all.
So much I could say, but it's your story, Lauren. So you and I will talk after we turn off the recording. But 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 even with that, right? Like it's just it served you for a period of your
Yes,
life,
good.
and then it wasn't serving you anymore. And then you got really clear on how it wasn't serving you and that there were other needs that needed to be
Yeah.
fulfilled. Go ahead. I was going to ask
I
the
would,
fifth question
no, I think
afterwards.
that serving us is such an important point, Paul, because I think that it, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Hmm.
Like allowing a certain periods of like I believe every season and every chapter of our lives serves a purpose.
Hmm.
And I that's why I say I never look back on any of those things with regret or like frustration because it all brings us to where we are and they serve a purpose. But being okay with letting go of what no longer serves us is
Hmm.
so important to what comes next. And like we
Yeah.
like I sat where I did knowing this is what I want to do. This is where I got it took me a long time to do it. And then there was that catalyst of that job switch that maybe compressed the time, right? Because it
Hmm.
was like, this is really not what I want to do.
Hmm.
And so I'm so appreciative actually of that as much as I didn't like it because I was able to move faster through the this does not serve me phase, I think.
Hmm.
So I think I just love that. Like things that don't serve us, we need to be willing to let go of and maybe let go of them faster than
Yeah.
we want to.
Ooh, and that's powerful too. And that's the second time you said that. So, and I'll interject this too before I ask the last question, which is, you know, that's what I love about this podcast. And this is why it's not an advice giving podcast, because you're not saying people shouldn't work for corporate. You're not saying that if you're working for corporate, you should get out. What you're showing us is that when things are a yes for you, then let them be a yes and go for it. And when things become a no for you, pay attention to that, right? So, because I'm a big believer in just because this is your path that you're walking and you're sharing with us doesn't mean that anybody else is supposed to walk that path. But as I personally look at your story, I'm constantly reminded of, yeah, there's this thing that I said yes to the other day that I wasn't really, you know, eager about doing. And it wasn't like a, I'll do it. And it was, I'm doing it. And I'm not really sure why I'm doing it. Or, that I've been wanting to do this thing over here for a long time. And I keep saying no, but why am I not allowing it to be a yes? And so that's kind of what I'm taking from your story. So with that in mind, the last question is, what does getting off the comma look like for you?
Mhm. I think getting off the comma, for me, getting off the comma was just finally being tired of being in my own way.
Mm,
I was tired of being unhappy, being in my own way, making excuses. And like I said earlier, I was like, nobody's gonna come make this decision for me. Like the gods aren't gonna come and say, this job is no longer here or this isn't happening. Like, because I'd always been really good at what I did. So that
mhm,
wasn't gonna happen. Like it wasn't gonna miraculously go away and that decision be made for me. I needed to make the decision. And I think that has been the story of my life is like I need to make the choice. And I think when I finally got to a place where I was like, okay, I'm this much more excited than I am scared,
mhm,
I did it. And I don't even think that that was like 5% more excited. It was literally like the scales tipped like that much. I was like,
mhm,
okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Right?
Yeah.
It's like never a lot. It's literally like micro steps, right?
Mhm,
And I think for me, it's kind of the concept of gradually then suddenly. So I think I was kind of gradually making the decision for years to make a move. And then
mm,
when I was finally ready, it was very like sudden. Like I decided I was going to do it. I made the decision. I gave notice and I left. And honestly, I didn't have much of a plan when I did it, other than knowing I was going to start a business and get after it. And I think for me, that was the way that was right for me, right? Like I
mhm,
knew this was what I was going to do. I went after it with both feet, which is kind of the story of my life. I'm going to go all in,
mhm,
and I'm going to find a way to make it work. And that is how I did it. So I knew I had the runway to do it. I knew I have this timeline of a couple years with my son, who's, a junior, and
mhm,
I will figure this out. And I think that has always been how my mom and dad have always said, you always land on your feet. And I feel really good about this decision and doing it in a way where I know that I have this guiding light of helping people. And there's so much need in the world for what I'm doing that I
mhm.
just know it's going to all work out too. So.
Yeah. Powerful. And I know just based on some of the things we've interjected throughout, like there's so much more you could share with us, but obviously the podcast must come to an end. So as we come to a close, two things. First of all, where can people find you? If people want to look you up, connect with you online, reach out to you, or potentially even, explore more about what you're offering. Obviously, I'll put the links and the information in the show notes, but tell us where folks can find you.
Yeah, they can find my website, which is www.theempoweredexec.com. They can find me on Instagram at Coach Lauren Y. They can connect with me on LinkedIn at Lauren Yankoff. So those are great ways to find me. But I would love for them to connect and learn more about what I do.
Nice. Awesome. And then the last thing we do in every episode is a section I call acknowledgments. And it's because if this podcast is all about giving people voices, lifting people up, and sharing stories, then your story wouldn't be complete if we didn't give you an opportunity to lift up others. And so it's your chance to boost, lift up, give a voice to, acknowledge others in your circle. And that can be their creators, causes, organizations, people, family members, what have you. So, who would you like to acknowledge today? And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes for you.
Sure. People who I would want to acknowledge, first and foremost, my mom and dad, Wayne and Kathy Yankoff. Without them, I would not be where I am today. My kids, Luke and Kale Renz, they are the loves of my life, the two most amazing boys in the world. I think I raised good humans, and I am grateful for their support every day. My partner, Jeremy Farfan, he has been amazing throughout this entire journey. Wouldn't be able to do it without his love and support. And then I want to, I recognize my coaching cohort
Sure.
because they're amazing. So Lauren Fuller at Fuller Yoga, she's been fantastic. Megan Mazurko, who is an exceptional coach who I would love people to know about. She's got a new book coming out. And then at Marvel Mindset, who is an exceptional mindset coach. So they are really, really exceptional coaches who have supported me along this journey and done some great things. And lastly, Priya Venkatasan, who introduced Paul and I, and
Mm.
she has just been a wonderful resource for me as well, helping me get better at speaking and doing some different things with my coaching. So appreciative of her.
She's great. And she is also in a prior episode, not too much earlier from yours. So folks can go and check her out there as well. Awesome. Well, Lauren, again, thank you so much for being here with us, for sharing your story with us. Obviously, I saw a lot of myself in your story today. And I know we'll chat more off the mic. And just thank you for being a part of our community here at Off the Comma.
Thank you, Paul. This was absolutely wonderful. I appreciate the opportunity to share.
Yeah, have a wonderful weekend. What an honor it is for me to hear and share these powerful stories. I hope you feel the same way. Think about what you learned from this conversation. I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling or reflection because surprises can reveal themselves to you when you write your thoughts down. If you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. And if you do discover something you'd like to unpack further, book a call with me and let's talk about it. My links are in the show notes. Be sure to like this episode and follow the podcast here on this platform and all social media at Off the Comma. Feel free to interact and comment. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. As always, keep noticing and keep listening.